quite a well-traveled journey. There'll be some surprises along the way, but yeah, we'll take it from the start. So I was about 9 years old when I joined my first club in Mitchell's Plain, Rocklands. The club called Stantive United FC. So basically, I was there for 6 months only, which was the last 6 months of like the year of football, and that's where I actually found out that I can play football. Because before then, I was more into athletics and running and things like that. Until I just spontaneously went to go and play a game with my friends, and yeah, and then I realized that I actually have some potential. Then I decided to move to my local area club called Strandfontein FC. They play in the LFA as well. And I was there for, I think, 1 season or 2 seasons for both years under 11. Did really well there to the point where I decided then that I want to go for trials at Ajax. So there's a twist in this one because at the time, I don't know if you know Duncan Crowe.
Yes, everybody knows Duncan Crowe.
Yes. So Duncan Crowe was was a coach at Ajax Cape Town at the time, and then the time I decided that I wanted to go to Ajax, he had left and joined Santos FC. So he was the one that I contacted, and he was the one that said, you know what, we're actually having trials at Santos. I moved from Ajax to Santos. Why don't you come here? You know, so then I decided then I'm going to Santos. I went to Santos, did the trials, made it. I stayed there for 2 seasons and a half, 3 plus minus, and up until 14 years old. So from 11 till 14, I was at Santos. And then I decided there that everybody wants to play for Ajax. When you're in Cape Town and you're playing football, every young kid wants to join Ajax. You know, at the time they were wearing Puma, and they were always kitted out well in tournaments, and they just looked dominant, you know, in every aspect, in the way they play, in the way they look, the way they carry themselves. You just wanted to be part of a team like that, you know. And so that was one of my dreams, and I then decided to contact the club. One of the scouts, I got in contact with one of the scouts. So I had to do some homework, search around by certain people that knows, you know. I had to go through some alleys. Eventually, I got the number of the main scout, and that his name was Mr. John Rao at the time. So I called him, you know, and I did this at the age of 14 by myself, calling, you know, because I was that determined, because I felt that I had that potential, and that's where I wanted to be. So I was going to do everything I can, you know, and of course with the support of my family, but they always allowed me to do things by myself with their support. So then I called Mr. John Rao, and I told him who I am, and he recognized who I am because we had played a tournament where they were involved in, and they somehow watched me play. But the relationship between Santos and Ajax were never, you know, really good, where you can do a transfer deal or like move from there to there, you know. So it was always going to be an ugly way of doing things. However, they invited me to come for an open trial where, you know, there's over 200 boys that comes and you showcase what you have, and then there's many coaches and scouts that select players. However, I managed to make the cut of 8 boys that joins the training with the team, and then eventually they cut it to 2, and then I was the one out of all of them that actually stayed with the club. So then I stayed with Ajax Cape Town Academy for 4 years. Or let's say 3.5, because I was playing for my school as well, Mondale High School, and we had played a tournament called the Motsepe Cup, and we had won the Cape Town region. We had won the Western Cape region, and then we had to go and play the national region where we play against all the other provinces and schools. And then we ended up playing in Durban, you know, and I played the tournament there and did really well for the school. And of course, we all know that the biggest club in Durban is AmaZulu FC. And at the time, there was no contact. No one came to me there during that time. So I had known nothing, you know. Eventually, I was done with school, and 3 months after I was done with school, I was with Ajax Vodacom team at the time. So the under-19s plays in the Vodacom League. So I was 17, playing with Ajax under a Vodacom League team. And this one day, I got called to play a friendly with the PSL side against Santos, first team. And the specific day is the day that my agent called me, the morning before the friendly match against Santos with the PSL side, that he had been contacted by Mazulu with an offer, a straight contract offer sent through to him, saying that we want to sign this boy. And of course, I got ecstatic. I was so excited. You can imagine how excited I was to even play, you know, with the first team with Ajax that day, because now I know that there's some offer out there for me in the PSL, and they, you know, I'm wanted by this club, you know. So I went out and I played really well with the team, and I made it even harder for Ajax to let me go, you know, by performing at such a young age. Eventually, I had to let the club know that, listen, I've got an offer from another PSL club. You guys haven't yet spoken to me about signing me. I have given them the club the opportunity to come up with something. And somehow, to their understanding, they wanted to do it within the next 6 months. So not right now, as Amazulu wanted. They wanted to do it in 6 months' time. So they wanted to give me another 6 months to develop and those type of things. However, it was always my dream that at the age of 18, I want to sign my first professional contract. And at the time, I was 17. So Amazulu was very adamant. They increased the money. They did everything possible to try and convince me. And of course, eventually, I decided with my family that to take the step in my career, and because it was, like I said, my goal to sign at 18, that this is it, you know. And then eventually I was still too young to sign. So then the club asked me then to join in the meantime until I'm 18. So it was another month till my birthday. So I trained with the club and played friendlies with the team and everything, because I had eventually like given my resignation to Ajax. And of course it was a whole situation, court case, and you know, I had to go to Joburg for a court case and all these type of things, and it gets like, you know, rescheduled all the time. And eventually after like 3 to 6 months, they came to some agreement, and yeah, they let me go. So that was good. So I was able to then sign, you know, on my birthday, and so it was good for me. Everything that I wanted like happened the way I wanted it to happen. And
did you
yeah,
leave
it was
as
an
a free
interesting
agent
time.
though? Did you leave?
I left as a free agent because I'm not sure if the Vodacom contract can keep you from signing a professional contract, because I think a Vodacom contract is an amateur contract.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So if you can obtain a professional contract, then that Vodacom contract is not strong enough to bind you. So I think that's how they were able to get me out of that contract. You understand?
So just to take you a little bit backwards, the debate then with Ajax at the time would have been, they've spent money on you from your
Yes.
for you accessing the academy and spending
Yes.
3.5 years there, and then there you are, you're leaving them for the better offer, which no player can refuse. If you've set your goal that at 18 you're looking forward to sign your professional contract, and there you are, Ajax were saying in 6 months' time, and Amazulu were saying now.
Yeah. Yeah. And also the money wouldn't even have been half the money. Do you know what I'm saying? Not that it was about that time, but just it adds, you know.
Yeah.
As much as we say it's for the love of football, that's part of it. You know, we must be realistic in how we think about things. But yeah, it was basically coming down to them being obviously disappointed in the fact that they've invested in me, and now a club comes and just, you know. So obviously it wasn't like a really sweet goodbye, even though like I said, I had arranged a meeting with the club, the bosses of the club, and with my father and my agent. We all sat together and we explained what my goals are, what I want. And because I loved Ajax, I still love Ajax, Cape Town Spurs, where they are now, for what they've done for me. I've learned a lot. They basically paved the way in terms of my development and the way I'm playing, and all the basics and technical things. Ajax gets a lot of credit for that, and I think a lot of people knows that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
and here you are at Amazulu, and you
yes,
sign the contract, or you wait for a couple of months before you sign the professional one.
yes.
So what you've described the level of excitement and consulting your parents and making that decision, and you join the club, and you're in the professional setup structure now, having a professional contract.
Yes. Of course, it was an amazing feeling to be a part of such amazing players. I mean, I was part of players like Mark van Heerden. Eventually, Robin Johannes joined. Ruzek Hamildin was there at the time. A lot of good players. What's his name? Dlamini.
Yeah.
Who's the coach? Who was the coach now recently? So. Really good players that's established in the PSL, just to mention a few. So yeah, it was a big transition, of course, because Ajax was more like a home where they nurture you, whereas now I stepped into manhood, kind of.
Yeah, you're on your own now. You're away
on
from
my
home.
own, away from home, and I just turned 18, and must remember also the passing of my brother as well. That was still fresh at the time. So, so it was a lot for me, at once, like just the passing of my brother. 2 years later, I get it, or not even 2 years, a year later, I get my first professional contract, and I have to leave home, so it was emotionally, it was, straining me, and it was difficult, but I knew my vision, I knew my goal, I knew my dream. And obviously I was very determined, to do it for myself and also for my brother. So yeah, I was quite motivated even at that age already. So, and for me, it was more like to learn from these players. I didn't go there expecting to play. Of course, I'm going there not to just add numbers, but, I was going there to learn and to develop further, out of my comfort zone.
Out of your comfort zone. Let's chat about you're out of your comfort zone, and you're eager to play at the same time. And if I look at your career when you moved to Amazulu, then you were moving around. I want you to take us through that, because you spoke about being patient and looking forward for game time.
Yes, that was the main thing for me. What I've learned there was patience, because imagine, like, from the first game of the season with Amazulu, my first season with Amazulu, I was on the bench for each and every game, and not once was I used.
Sure.
Think about it. That, like, you're so close, but yet so far, Yeah. And because for me it was like, people started motivating me, saying, the fact that you're on the bench at this age means that you've got something. So just keep on doing what you're doing. Your time is gonna come, And I couldn't understand that, because, like, for me it's like, man, it's 9 games down the line and still I haven't, Eventually, like, the coach at the time, Craig Rosley, he got, I think he got fired, or he resigned or something like that. And then Coach Steve Barker then signed for Amazulu, and of course, the different coaches comes in. They come with different ideas and different style of coaching, and a really intelligent coach, a really good coach that I also learned a lot from. And he's more like a father type of coach as well, especially to the younger players, And he's the one that gave my Amazulu debut. It was the last game of the year, but not of the season, of the year at the time. So the first half of the season, the last game. Yeah. So it was, I was on the bench, and he put me into the field against Swallows, and it was, it was a dream come true, that finally, my debut comes, and my dream happens, that I'm playing, in a big stadium, at the highest level in South Africa, and I can't express, in words what it felt like, but eventually then, I spoke to the coach, and I told him, I can't expect to play regularly, because I'm still young, and of course, like, that club wasn't doing well at the time because they had drawn 9 games.
Yeah.
They drew 9 games, so they hadn't won 1 game, like the first half of the season. So I told him, of course, he's going to turn to his experienced players and to try and get them out of the position. So it was an unfortunate situation that I found myself in at that time of joining AmaZulu. And then eventually, I spoke to the coach, and I told him that I think, like, you guys should send me on loan to like an NFD club, where I can most probably get a lot more game time. And because for 6 months I haven't played, like regular football, competitive football. Of course, I played friendly matches against like Arrows and Maritzburg and those PSL clubs closely around, but that's not enough. You want to play the official games. That's where it matters. Eventually he agreed with me, and he said, as much like he's not going to force me to go, it's up to me, he said, because he also feels that he can add to what I have, and of course develop me more, but he understands that playing is more important than just training. So then I decided, they said I could choose which club, and they'll contact the club and make it happen. Eventually, I then chose to join Vasco da Gama, which is back home, and I'll have the support of my family. I thought it's going to be, maybe the transition was a bit too quick, too soon away from home, and so to come back home would maybe then re-energize and recoup. And then I played quite regularly at Vasco da Gama, and I enjoyed my time there really well. Really good coaches at the time that was there, and the club was really good, the players that were there. So I had a really nice time at Vasco da Gama, gaining some game time. Eventually, AmaZulu then decided to call me back at the end of the season. But then they had gotten relegated. So now I'm going back to NFD with AmaZulu. Again, I didn't get the game time that I thought I was going to get in NFD, because now I'm an under. Yet I wasn't getting the game time, and at that time you needed to have 5 unders in your starting 11 at that time. And still I wasn't getting much, even though and there I started a few games, but like, it's not how I imagined it should be. Eventually then I decided, what, the best thing for me to do is to part ways with the club, to find myself a club that needs a player like me. Meaning I'm going to be playing, I'm going to be an important part of the team. And there was no other club than Vasco da Gama.
Yeah.
So I resigned with AmaZulu, and I decided to go back and join Vasco da Gama, and it was for the second half of the season, of course. So then I played there as well regularly again, and enjoyed my time there as well, and I'm grateful for them, for believing in me. And eventually they obviously changed names or changed owners or something like that, and they became Stellenbosch. At the end of the season, now the twist comes, because at this point, Cape Town City had come about, right? And Eric Tinkler was the coach at Cape Town City, right? He was appointed as the coach, and I joined training with Cape Town City from day one. From the day that they started training, I joined them, and I won't tell a word of a lie. After my first training session with Eric Tinkler, Coach Eric Tinkler, he waited with me after training for my dad to come and pick me up, because he wanted to speak to my dad after the first training session.
Wow.
And I didn't know what he was speaking to my dad about. Of course, when I got into the car and we went home, my dad, was telling me, and he was very happy with what Coach Eric Tinkler was telling him, that your son has got so much potential, and I want him to sign here. I want to take care of him and develop him further and nurture him going forward. And because he saw something in me within one training session, and he was like, you need to have me on his team. Eventually, I got called to the office a few days later, and I had a discussion with the boss, Mr. John Komitas, and the coach and director of the club and all of that. And eventually we couldn't get to an agreement, you know, for some reason. There was, for details that I won't get into, but we couldn't find and reach an agreement. However, they gave me the opportunity to keep on training with the club and until we come to an agreement somehow, and you know. So then I continued to train with the club. It went up to 6 weeks, and the 6th week it was 2 weeks before the league starts.
Sure.
You know, and I'm wondering, you know, what's happening. And every week, Coach Eric Tinkler asks me, "Have you been to the office yet? Have you been to the office yet?" And I'm like, "No, like I'm still waiting on Mr. Kamitas to come back to me. Like I don't know when he's calling me to the office." And eventually he was like, "Okay, no, come, let's go."
Yeah.
So we go, and they then all of a sudden decide, "No, we don't feel that you're ready for the PSL. So, yeah, you can find yourself another club, you know." And I could see the disappointment in the coach's face, you know. And eventually, I knew I'll remember that, you know, the coach. I'll remember him, and I'm sure he will
Yes.
remember me.
Yeah.
So then, you know, I asked my agent, you know, just like look around, see what you can get. Because at this point, it's desperation. There's 2 weeks left before the season starts. Clubs are preparing. And, you know, most PSL clubs said, "No, we know Darren Smith, but why so late? You know, we've already, you know, gotten our squads, you know, and blah, blah, blah." Eventually, I was like, okay, go reach out to the NFD teams.
What goes through your mind, Darren? Just take you through. What goes through your mind when you receive that message at that particular moment? And you've got 2 weeks to go before the Premier Soccer League starts.
You know what? I won't tell you whatever. I was so confident that I'll be signing at Cape Town City because I felt like I was at home, you know, and just the I won't say respect from the coach, but just that realization that this boy's got something, you know, that meant something to me, you know, and I could see in the way that he would guide me on the field. He's taking interest in me, you know, and that's why I was so confident that this is the club that I'm going to sign at, you know. No matter what, I'm going to end up at this club. But for some reason, maybe it just wasn't God's will, you know, that it's going to happen. And I won't lie to you, you know, after that final meeting, I waited for my dad, you know. But the place that I had the meeting at, it was about 1 kilometer walk to where my dad picks me up. And I promise you, I started questioning myself. Like, is it me, you know? Like if I can't make it, if I can't sign a contract with this club, like what's the point even now then to continue? Because now it's just going to be NFD the whole time, and I'm not going to, you know, feel that I'm worthy enough anymore and things like that. And I even cried, you know, while walking back to where my dad, you know, would pick me up. And I had those thoughts running through my mind, you know, like maybe I'm not like good enough, you know. And because in my heart, I knew and I felt that I was good enough and I had what it takes. But, you know, these disappointments and, you know, things certain people, important people say is like important, getting like words from important people, you value it because they have experience in the world of football, you know. I mean, if you think of Mr. John Kamitas, and I have a lot of respect for him, you know, because by the way, he was the main man in helping my move to Amazulu.
Yeah.
So imagine that the mental, the mental part of it that was messing me up, you know. Like this is the man that helped me sign my first professional contract, you know, with Amazulu.
But he doesn't want to sign you now for his own club.
This is the man that when he was planning years before on having his own club, had invited me to his house, explained to me, "I want you to be part of my new club that I'm going to purchase at some point in the future." Think about it. So I had known about Cape Town City, not the name, but I'd known about this club that was going to happen way before, while I was at Ajax, you know. So for me, it took a big knock. So I was very emotional about the situation, and I know Coach Eric Tinkler knew about how emotional I was with the situation and stuff. Eventually, then, you know, when I was at Santos, I had a dream as a Santos player that I want to play, you know, on Athlone Stadium where Erwin Isaacs plays, you know. I want to play on that field, you know. And I'm sure every Santos boy wanted to play on that field where Erwin Isaacs played. And I feel like, you know, what you wish for, you know, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Somehow, no other club in the NFD wanted me besides Mr. Ghulam Ali.
Yo.
Come back home. The prodigal son came
So the
back home.
prodigal son came back
Santos.
home.
Eventually,
Wow.
like I said, it was 2 weeks left, and we
Yeah.
had to reach out to NFD clubs, and Santos was the one that was most welcoming. And he told me, my boy, the only way I'm gonna sign you is if you sign a 6 months, 6 months plus 2 years. That's the only way I'm gonna sign you. And I told myself, you know what? This 6 months now that I'm gonna play myself out of that contract.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I told myself,
Yeah.
and I went there and I did really well, with Santos. And even though like they got relegated, but I made sure that my performances were on point, and I made sure that my fitness was there. I made sure that, mentally I grow from what has happened, and move on from that. So then they got relegated, and of course your contract becomes null and void because it's not anymore professional contract now. It's now an amateur contract. So that made me free again.
So here
So
you
then,
are. Here you are. You got a big knock of your career, and the only club that sort of gave you life
was Santos.
was Santos. And
Was Santos.
how did you overcome this psychologically? I understand that you were probably happy that you now got something from Santos to
Yes.
to kind of restart your career and maybe
Yes.
land that professional contract. How did you deal with this psychologically?
Wow. To be honest with you, like I believe that the support structure, the people you have around you, is a representation of who you are. Is a representation of you. And I'm blessed to have parents and a family like I have, for believing in me, firstly, the support that they show me. They support my dream, where most families would be like, maybe you should leave the football and focus on studies, or you get those families, that's more like focus on your studies rather, because you can see how it is in this football world. You now had your opportunity, and you can see that, you get some of those, whereas my family was so determined, they were so supportive. They knew that this was my dream, this was my goal. It's something that we've been praying about. It's something that we've been wishing for, So most of all, I feel it was that, and I think it's also, the promise that I made my brother, just a few days before he passed on. I told him, don't worry, one day you'll watch me score in the Champions League, because, I was busy in the kitchen making something, and he was watching some highlights. Zlatan Ibrahimovic scored this acrobatic goal,
Yeah.
that famous one, and he was shouting, Darren, come look here. And then like I came just too late, and that's when I told him, don't worry, you're gonna see me score goals like that in the Champions League one day. So I feel like that also psychologically sticks with me, at the back of my head. And for many people, that's very far-fetched, but I'm telling you, I'm very close,
Yeah.
and I know that God's gonna make it possible. So yeah, that's also part of my psychological motivation and what keeps me going. So but most of all, my family, like I said, they support, and their motivation at all times. They don't even give me opportunity to sulk.
Yeah.
They don't give me. They let me know immediately that the devil is happy where you're at right now. So you
Yeah.
better snap out of it
You better
and
come.
keep pushing.
You better come back. Now,
Yeah.
as a prodigal son, and Santos unfortunately went down, and we understand Santos has given so many football players opportunities.
Yes. Yes.
What did your father say, the chairman of Santos, as you take off with your career?
Um, I feel like he had an idea that I had gotten something, because he had somehow found out that some Johannesburg team are interested in me, because he had spoken to me and said that I heard some Johannesburg team is interested in you. I don't know which club it is, but what are you gonna do? And even him, he was very adamant. Like he didn't want to give my things, he didn't want to give my clearance, nothing like that. He wanted me to stay at the club, help the club come back up and everything. And eventually, I told my agent, you know what? Now that I'm free, do me a favor and call Coach Eric Tinkler,
Yeah.
because at that time he had joined Supersport.
Wow.
So the first thing that came to my mind is call Coach Eric Tinkler,
Yes.
because I know he remembers.
He remembers you. Yeah.
Yes. So then eventually he calls, In fact, he didn't call Coach Eric Tinkler first. He calls Kwanele Kopo. He was the head of youth, and he was also the MDC coach at the time. Called him 6 times. I made him call him 6 times. And on the 6th time, you know, they gave in and said, in fact, before the 6th call, I told him then, call Coach Eric Tinkler and ask him to speak to the head coach.
So that the head coach can pick up the phone call.
Yes, because obviously I can't come from a relegated team and think that I'm going to go straight into the PSL team. That's almost impossible. You understand what I'm saying? I have nothing to show yet for myself. I need to prove myself to SuperSport before, you know, I can just hit into the team. So then eventually he remembers me, of course, and he says, the best thing for you to do is go for a trial, because he said, I know what you're capable of, but these people, they don't know you, and they're not going to just take my word if they don't know you. So if you can be humble enough, go to the MDC for very little money, work your way up, and we take it from there. That's what he said. So there was no guarantee, right? I had to prove myself. Eventually, the 6th call to Kwanele Kopo, a man which I'm very grateful for, a man that has helped me tremendously. He's the assistant coach of the Bafana squad at the moment. So he then invited me, you know, and after the first session, he was like, we're going to speak to your agent, blah, blah, blah. We're going to sort everything out. Eventually, I then signed, well, not signed, because now it's the clearance that we are fighting for. So it was that situation all over again, you know, with Mr. Ghulam Ali for the second time.
So you went to court with Ajax. Now Santos is refusing to give your clearance.
Santos were refusing at the time to give my clearance. Took 3 months because Mr. Ghulam Ali said, there is no person I'm giving your clearance to besides the CEO of SuperSport, which is Mr. Matthews. So then that obviously means that it's not going to come without him getting something back. Because if he gives it to me, he's not getting anything in return if he gives it to me or my agent, you understand? So then eventually...
He's a businessman.
It's, you understand, Mr. Ghulam Ali, that's the world of football, it's business. Eventually then, I remember I was having a gym session at the time at SuperSport, like besides with the team, like on my own. And I got a phone call, and it was Mr. Matthews and Coach Kwanele Kopo. And they were like, so we got some good news for you. We finally reached an agreement with Mr. Ghulam Ali and, paid him a certain amount of money so that we can get your clearance. And he's given the clearance so you can sign. And, I missed the first 2 MDC games with SuperSport because of this, situation. And I think we didn't do too well in that first game. I think we drew 1 and lost 1. And he was like, no, we need to sign this boy. And that was like added motivation for him to push the chairman. First game, guess against who? Cape Town City's MDC team.
You must have taught them a lesson.
I scored 2, we won 5-1.
Wow.
I scored 2 and we won 5-1.
Yes.
5 games down the line, 7 goals, all up to the first team.
Yo. So
all up to the first team.
Yeah. Because I think that one of the things that is being overlooked is how difficult you had to work extra hard and how difficult it was for you to break through. And the mental capacity, the family support, and the relationship that you also established with people. Because if your relationship was not good with Coach Eric Tinkler, there was no ways that you would have made it at SuperSport.
Yes.
But because of that communication and that understanding, and him knowing the caliber of a player that you are, and it just made your life much better. It made things easier for you because it was a matter of a phone call. But even that was not a guarantee. You still have to work hard to break
Yeah.
them.
And if you think about it, like the contract that I was offered before joining the first team, like when they eventually got my clearance and they called me into the office, and I won't tell you a word of a lie. It was little to nothing, money. And they told me, don't look at the number right now.
Yeah.
They said, it depends on you. Within a month or two, within a couple of weeks, we can come back and tear this contract and you can write down the numbers you want. So imagine, like, I had to take a knock, and I had to be humble enough, because remember, I was at Amazulu, I was earning good money, and I had to go down, 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 all the way down, 6 feet under. And eventually, I humbled myself and I said, you know what, this is an opportunity that I have to take no matter what. And it's going to depend on me if I'm going further,
Yeah.
And I'm grateful, to God that He had given me the strength, the courage, and like you said, the capacity, the mental capacity to keep fighting and make it happen. And it was a month and a half. I went back into the office, and I went again and signed my new contract. But before I get to the new contract, so I get called up to the first team. Come and train. Just come and train, There's one game left for the year, first half of the season. Again, somehow things happen the same somehow, but It was the match against Bloemfontein Celtic. I hadn't known anything. I just thought I'm going to join the team for training before they go back home on a break, Christmas break and all of that. Because the MDC had stopped a week early already. So they said, no, you just go and join the first team to train and whatever. I won't tell you a word of a lie. We're standing in a circle, and of course, Coach Eric Tinkler is the coach at the time, and he says, no, we just want to welcome Darren Smith, and he doesn't know anything yet. And when he says that, nothing happens yet in my mind, because I'm not even like, because it's so far from my mind that I'm going to actually join the team on a permanent basis, because of how much of a knock I had to take all these times, that was so far from my mind.
Yeah.
That I didn't even like no light switch went on until he had said that. And also he's going to be part of the 18-man squad for this weekend's game. I won't tell you where I was so ecstatic. And like everyone started clapping for me, and they were like, it was such an amazing feeling. I was like, look at, it's Brocky standing next to me on the one side.
Yeah.
It's Grobele on the other side. That's insane. It's Yeye opposite me, Clayton Dan. This is a big players, national team players, and I'm part of this 18 squad.
Wow.
I couldn't fathom it. I couldn't understand it. Tusopala is standing here opposite me. It's insane. Insane. Dean Furman, an amazing player. Imagine like that group of players, and he's telling me that you're going to be part of the 18-man squad for this weekend's game. Man, oh man.
Without you having even read the signs or anything like that, and there's the announcement.
It was a real surprise. It was a real surprise.
Wow.
Then I trained and everything. After training, the manager comes to me and he tells me, congratulations, and the club has decided to give you jersey number 9. Now I'm telling you that this has been my dream number, jersey number 9 since a young boy, because I played striker all my life, and I've always loved number 9 because Fernando Torres was my favorite striker when he was at Liverpool.
Yeah.
When he was at Liverpool, he was deadly, and I loved the way he played and scored goals. So I always wanted to wear, the jersey number 9. And then this happens, where they give me the jersey number 9, and eventually the game day comes. I'm on the bench, of course, and we're behind 1-0 against Bloemfontein Celtic at Bloemfontein. And it's about the 60-odd minute. Coach Eric Tinkler says, go home up. And I'm telling you, the nerves that goes through me, even though I've been at Amazulu, and I've been training with like professional players and PSL players with Cape Town City, and all of that goes down the drain. I'm
This
telling you, all of
is
that goes down the drain.
this
All
is
your
the big
experience,
moment, yeah.
the big moment. And eventually, he calls me and he says, go out there and score a goal for us. That's what he said. That's all
Yo,
he said.
yeah.
Go out there and score a goal for us. Man, the first cross that comes, I hit that ball through the keeper's legs. And I didn't know what
What
to
to
do. I
do?
just ran to the closest player. I ran to them and jumped and just, embraced them. And it was Dean Furman that was there to embrace
Yeah.
me. And it was the most amazing feeling
Wow.
that
Wow.
I've ever felt.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the adrenaline going through my veins, through my body was just amazing. And man, we ended up drawing the game 1-1,
Yeah.
and it felt really good. Really, really good. It felt like all that hard work, blood, sweat, tears, that I endured, and God has made this possible again. It just shows that, God is real and He's able to do all things, and He can do the impossible. Eventually, then after this game, we go back home. In fact, we had one more session, and then I went to Coach Eric Tinkler. I didn't know what was happening at the time, remember? I'm still on the MDC contract. I go to him and I said, Coach, is it okay if I join the team when they come back? I really want to stay with the team. This is me, asking him, and he was like, if you want to,
Yeah.
I mean, you're part of the PSL team now, so if you want to come back, you can come back. He said it in that way, and I was like, oh, okay, because I don't know what's going on. So he
You
said,
weren't sure?
I wasn't sure. Yeah, I come back and, I'm part of the team, and I'm just grateful, for the opportunity that Coach Eric Tinkler gave me, the belief he showed in me from when I was at training with Cape Town City. And, man, it's I'm sure you can see the excitement that I'm still
No,
able to feel.
I can see it is as if it's happening right now. And those are the things
Exactly.
that we want to see with football players.
Yes.
The resilience and working hard, and because if you understand your goals, you know exactly what to do. And you made those phone calls, and your relationship, I think it's quite clear, your relationship with your agent, it's meaningful, and it's something that he also, or she, understands at the time who you were and what you were looking for. And and only yourself that can shape your path. And that is what football players and even supporters of football needs to understand, is that football players go through a lot, and there's so many things that happens around.
There's more coming.
There's more coming your way than so if you don't have that structure to pull you through. And here you are at SuperSport in the senior team. And having looked at your past, and when it comes to your career, you've been loaned right throughout, and certain things happened.
Yeah.
And here you see yourself as almost now breaking through.
Yes. Which I thought at the time, this is my breakthrough,
Yes.
And I ended up, playing a couple of games, with the first team, and I was very much part of the team. And eventually, they SuperSport offered me, a brand new deal, money that I've never earned before in my life, and I'm grateful to God for that. And I was able to do things for my family that I always wanted to do, and so that's always a good thing, that you remember where you come from, you remember who your support structure is, and they're the first people that you want to make happy, So yeah, I'm at SuperSport. I'm playing a couple of games. Eventually, unfortunate situation happens that Coach Eric Tinkler had to leave the club, and the assistant coach Gaetano Mtembo takes over, and eventually, for some reason, I'm not in his plans, and I noticed that I wasn't, getting the game time all of a sudden, that I was getting before. And I then decided maybe I should, in fact, he then told me to go back down to the MDC team and prove myself.
Now, just take us through the moment that you're not getting game time. Are you getting feedback? Yes. Are you getting feedback in terms of which areas that you need to focus on, that you need to improve on? Directly from the coach or from the technical team?
No, like I said before, different coaches has a different way of doing things. you know. Some coaches are very direct. Some coaches are like a father figure where they take you through, they walk you through because they understand, you know, a player. They understand the needs and wants of a player. And in order to get the best out of your player, there's a certain type of relationship. I mean, if you look at Jurgen Klopp, if you look at his relationship that he has with his players, you know, just outwardly, you can see, you can imagine how he is in the dressing room. You can imagine how he is on the field outside of football. You can imagine that any player wants to play under such a coach. You know what I'm saying? So I have promised myself that I would never make any excuses or blame anyone for what I go through in my career, you know. But I will just say it like it is because that's what the people want and that's what the people should know. So, like I said, the coach Caetano Ntembu decided that I'm not good enough to play in his team, and I should go back down to prove myself that I am worthy enough to be in the PSL side, you know. And we were a group of 6 boys that were training with the PSL team that was MDC players. And we had that meeting all at once. Now remember, out of the 6, I was the only one that was actually part of the PSL team, you know. But he gave this meeting with a group of 6, not one-on-one, group of 6. So imagine like how I had to put my pride in my pocket and accept that meeting, you know. And I was like, man, I would expect you to have this conversation with me personally, seeing that I was part of this team, you know. And here's a group of MDC players, no disrespect to them, but they weren't part of the PSL team, and you're putting me in the same category and meeting as them. You know what I'm saying? So it was kind of like.
So this is after the assessment of the coach of the first team.
Yes. And then he then said in that meeting that you guys should go down and prove yourself in the MDC team. You know what? Like at that point in my mind, you know, I was looking at him, you know, in his eye, you know, and I was thinking in myself, I'm going to show you that I deserve to be in this team. You know, I never had any negativity against him. I just told myself, I'm going to show you that I deserve to be here. You know, and then eventually I go back down to the MDC team. A European coach from Holland is then now the head coach of the MDC team.
Yeah.
This man sees the potential in me. He makes me the captain of the team. And he gives me the responsibility to lead the team. Eventually, the same statistics happens. 5 games, 7 goals.
Sure.
Now I start asking questions. Okay, you've asked me to prove myself again. I've done that, you know, in performances, in stats, everything you want. I was like, how can I say? There were a lot of talks about me, of course, because I've been in the PSL. So, like, commentary was always there, and we're hoping that he gets back into the first team and things like that, you know, with speculations was going around and stuff. So, of course, like, you hear that as a player and you start wondering now, you start taking note now, like, is this coach taking note of what I'm doing or what's happening? Eventually, you know, the window opens and I obviously asked the question, so, like, what are we going to do now? Am I getting called back to the first team, or do I have to finish the season with the MDC? Because, I mean, I've showed you what I'm capable of doing. And I'm telling you, during this time with the MDC team, almost every single PSL player in Supersport believed that I deserved to be in the team.
Sure.
Spoken to me on several occasions. Dean Furman spoken to me on several occasions saying that you really deserve to be back in this team. I don't know why you are not in this team. You have something that the players that we have in your position doesn't have. So imagine you get this feedback, you know?
Yeah.
And
the senior player.
In my mind, exactly. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm not going to allow this to affect my performance with the MDC. And I'm telling you, every single day on training with the MDC team, you must remember, it's different facilities now. Now it's going lower and lower. So the facilities are not as good as where I was. So I had to channel my mind in a way that I'm not going to allow my environment to affect my performance, you know, my attitude towards the game of football. Because I believe, and I go by the code that if you respect football, football will respect you.
Yeah.
You know, and in life as well, respect goes a long way. You know, and eventually then the coach, no interest at all. Why? I have no clue. Nobody knows to this point why. You know, only he knows why. Eventually then I decided, you know what, I'm not growing with the MDC team in terms of playing with against younger players. You know, I'm just bullying them. And I just felt like I need a challenge. You understand what I'm saying? And if it wasn't going to be Super Sport in the first team, then it's going to have to be try and get another PSL side, you know, to have interest or something like that. Then unfortunately, there were no PSL interest. And I decided then there were many NFD interests. So then I chose Ubuntu. I decided to go back to Cape Town. Like I said, some of things happened always the same.
Yeah.
I go back to Cape Town, support of my family. I play. I don't play as much as I thought and expected I was going to play.
Yeah.
I played in 4 different positions,
Sure.
mind you me. 4 different positions. So basically, I hadn't been able to establish myself in that team because now it's only the second of the season, 6 months, you know, and they also struggled. Second team, third team, in fact, that I got relegated with. Third team, Ubuntu FC, got relegated. Eventually, I go back to Supersport. My loan is done. Mind you me, before I go back, I got myself a new apartment in Johannesburg. So I've arranged already a new apartment and, you know, online and everything like that. And I decided I'm going to go 2 weeks earlier than the rest of the team before we start, because I wanted to settle in, train on my own, get used to the climate, and make sure that I'm ready to show this coach that I deserve to be in this team, you know? Eventually then, first day of training comes with Super Sports first team. I put on my kit. The guys are excited to see me. They're happy to see me. They missed me. I was away for 6 months on loan, you know, and yeah, it was an amazing feeling to be back and all of that. So I'm sitting in a training room, you know, with my kit on, and the kit manager calls me and he says, you know, the manager is calling you. And I said, okay. You know, I go out and I go to the manager and he says, Darren, I don't know how to say this to you. The manager, not the coach.
Not the coach, the manager. Yeah.
I don't know how to say this to you, but somehow there was some miscommunication along the way.
Yeah.
But we had a meeting with the coaching staff, and you're basically not in the plans of the coach for the new season. And I was like, okay, so how does this work? Like,
Yeah.
I moved into my new apartment. I settled in and everything. You know, I'm ready to work. Like, you guys are telling me on the first day of the new season that I'm not in the plans of the coach. Like, there are teams that's now already preparing for the league. Like, you guys could have told me when I was on my break in Cape Town, you know, before the new season starts, so I could have started looking, you know, for other options and stuff. But you guys never said anything. You know, and I'm telling you this because this is the utmost truth.
Sure.
And if he's gonna hear this, he's gonna know that it's the truth.
Yeah.
You know, I'm talking about the manager.
Yeah.
And he said, "Yeah, I'm sorry that I'm the one that has to say this. You know, doing the dirty work." And I told him, you know, like, I understand, and I took it like a man. I said, "No, I'll take it like a man," even though I told him that, you know what, I'm gonna feel very embarrassed if I'm gonna have to go back in that changing room now while the players are there and take off my kit and leave. You know, can at least, you know, can you stay with me and talk to me until they leave for training so that I can go back in the changing room and take my kit off? And he said, no, of course, I understand.
So this is during or about the training?
This is last year, in the beginning of the new season, beginning of 20.
So you were about to start with your training session and you get this news.
First training session of the new season of 2019-2020 season.
Sure.
And I get this news on the first day from the manager.
Yeah.
Eventually, the guys go to training and I go to change. And in my mind, I'm like, I just wish I could see this coach, you know, and get the opportunity to talk to him like a professional. Because I believe that's how you do things. You do things in an appropriate professional manner. Because you're a professional club. You're a coach of a professional club. Man, I think God placed him, you know, right outside the changing room when I walked out. And at the time, I think he came up to get something, you know, and I got him and I was like, I greeted him, I walked on, and then I turned around and I said, Coach, can I have a word with you, you know? Because I almost just walked away.
Yeah.
I said, Coach, can I please have a word with you? And he said, yes, of course. You know, all welcoming all of a sudden. And, you know, I asked him, like, I told him, I just received the news from Paul Matthews that I'm not in your plans. Like I was unaware of this. Like, how is it that I'm only hearing this now on the first day of the new season? You know, I told him that we had a meeting 6 months ago, and you told me to go back down to the MDC team to prove myself and to show you, and you like based on performances, we will come back up to the first team. And I told him I did everything possible, you know, in that first 6 months. I told him my stats was better than anyone. I was the leading goal scorer in MDC at the time, all of that. I told him none of that was enough for you to bring me back up. So what would have been enough for you to bring me back up? I told him, what am I lacking that the other strikers doesn't have? Because now at this time, I felt like I've not established, but I've shown what I can do as a player, you know, for SuperSport, you know, and he couldn't answer me on what I don't have that they have, you know, or what they have that I don't have. And he couldn't answer me. And